on a personal side, and we talk about personal barriers, what advice would you give to leaders who feel like they need to put on a mask to succeed?
Mm. As part of my experience, I'm the co-founder and executive sponsor of a Black Talent Career Development Program at the
Hmm.
organization I work for. And so I'm a coach for them as well,
Hmm.
mostly mid-level and executive. And this is something that comes into the conversations quite a bit. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I feel like I have to put a mask on in order to participate in a meeting or to lead a project. I have to comply, and that's something that we talk about quite a bit. And what I do is talk to, so how does that make you feel? What are some things that you think about that really weigh on you when it comes to those things? And I said, in an ideal world, what would it look like if you didn't have to do that?
Hmm.
And the answer is usually it would feel great. I would just be me. I would just be authentic and genuine to who I am. And I said, so what if you tried that? If you tried that, what do you think the impact would be?
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, well, are you willing to,
Hmm.
try that? And the answer is usually yes. And they come back feeling like, you know what, I didn't put all that stuff on myself to do it. And I do feel like I have a voice and I feel valued. I've taken that mask off because I know I can show up as who I am, even if I know it won't be immediately accepted,
Hmm.
right? Because right at the bottom line is, are you doing it for them or for you?
Hmm. Right.
And some people have also said it felt like a weight
Hmm.
was lifted, right, when the mask is removed. And I said earlier, sometimes the later or the deeper you get into your career, the less you care about what other
Right.
people think. And you have
Right.
to start that somewhere, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to start
That's
it.
true.
It's usually when you get fed up of being, or that weight of not truly being authentic becomes so heavy that you just can no longer carry it. And it's
Right.
just like, look, I'm just going to show up as me.
Hmm.
I'm still going to professional perceptions or expectations. Some of them are valid. You don't want to come up in like you're doing a sports event, like I said before, or
Right.
something super social. You want to take the situation and know that it's serious, but you still want to be you. You still
Hmm.
want to be able to share your experiences as a person of color, as a male, as a female, as whoever you identify as being. So that mask is heavy. It gets heavy in particular for Black talent. And at some point, it's like, I got to take this off and just be me.
Yeah.
I have to ask questions,
Right.
and I ask a lot of questions. And at some point in my career, a senior person said, yeah, you ask a lot of questions, almost too many. I'm like, really?
How can there be too many questions when you're
How can
trying to
there be
learn something?
questions? Yeah, and I found out that was, a situation where they felt like I was just doing too much when I was just trying to serve the client and the customers that we were working for. And I wondered if I looked different and showed up differently, would that have been a critique? I still wonder
Hmm.
that today. And the
Hmm.
person even offered to pull their ear
Hmm.
when we were in meetings to stop me from asking questions. And
Hmm.
I said, no, no, thank you. It's all
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
But, and again, that I think that was a microaggression as well in
Right.
terms of, trying to manage and control me.
Hmm.
And in that sense, I felt like, okay, this is a space that I no longer need to be in because it could long term make me want to put masks back on
Right.
and not feel value and be more controlled than a contributor
Hmm.
to what is happening. So yeah, it's hard. And I've said that to mostly Black professionals before.
Hmm.
This is hard and it's not fair. But if we choose to be in this space, how can we show up as ourselves
Right.
and be authentic and still also try to shift things
Mhm.
because if we don't, it'll stay the same,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you
That's the
said there's been a
mindset.
lot of shifts in leadership is because
Right.
people showed up and made changes. They showed how it could be different in
Mhm.
order for things to start shifting in a different way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The change of mindset. I say change of
Mm-hmm.
mindset, diversity of thought, and also um, to add to taking off that mask or leaving on that mask can really then take you down the road of your mental health.
Oh yeah,
Okay. And
absolutely.
when we start talking about, mental health now has come up quite a bit in organizations where it was like, um, I remember years ago when we didn't call it a sick day, we called it a mental health day because it was just
Mm,
like I just can't deal with deal with this today. I can't deal with them today.
yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sick, but I need a mental health day. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was coined as a sick, taken as a
Yeah.
sick day. But
Mm-hmm.
because we had to regroup or recoup or, rebound from maybe
Yeah.
what was going on. We had to step away, and that was the only outlet we had. And then
Mm-hmm.
EAP came along, but then there was
Mm-hmm.
a stigma behind that. And
Oh yeah.
so, and you still had the mask, but EAP
Mm-hmm.
can help you kind of work through those things, when it
Mm-hmm.
came
Mm-hmm.
to if you took advantage of that, but there may be a stigma. Then now we have where we are looking at authentic leadership, we're looking at equity leadership, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I like about it is, um, I always say, um, be you, but be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can be you, but you have to be careful
Mm-hmm.
and navigating how you're going to show up as you. And I
Yeah.
think that will
Yes.
always be something that I won't say always, I'll say for right now, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we have to, as Black professionals, have to be conscious of.
Yes.
But we still want to try to, kind of push the envelope, move
Mm-hmm.
the stereotypes and
Mm-hmm.
you came in as three different kinds. You were a um, angry black woman, a snow
Yeah.
queen. What was the third one? Or something like a Jezebel or something. You know what I mean? That's how you
Mm-hmm.
were labeled, depending on
Yeah.
those women that came in that were outspoken. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you immediately had a hate, had a not a target on your back, but you were categorized.
Absolutely.
Immediately categorized, and
Yeah.
that still comes from cultural, I think, cultural stereotypes and
Mm-hmm.
pressure. I think
Yeah.
it's much
A lot
better.
of
It's
pressure.
getting better
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
I see, well, from what I'm seeing, things are changing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of leads me to my next question on how do public figures portray leadership, and do you think that affects how leaderships behave in real life? Public figures.
Yeah, yeah. And when I think about the public figures that come to mind right now, it's just like, oh God.
Hey, this is going to be a half-hour conversation.
Right. Oh my gosh, the influence. I just think about influence, right? And what we see out there from celebrities to political folks
Sure.
and that political folks who are celebrities and vice versa.
Hmm.
It's just one of these things that again, being more self-aware can help you navigate better, but we're still consuming these public figures. We're still hearing and seeing what they're saying and it's
We
to
can't
me
get
it's
away from it.
chaos
Yeah,
and
we can't.
you
We
can't if
can't get
you
away
watch
from it.
TV, if you listen to a podcast, if you listen, I mean anything,
Just turn
it's
on the
if
TV.
they're there and it's
Yeah.
just like you can flip the channel as much as you want. Yes, you can go to Netflix, Hulu and all that, but
Uh-huh.
once you get back to reality, they are still there.
Yeah.
So to me, it's all about assessment. It's just like, what is this person really trying to convey?
Hmm.
The general population, taking it in, I don't know how other people may perceive it but it's so overwhelming. And and the
It
fact
can
that it's
be.
overwhelming, even if you don't watch it, Marilyn, you'll probably hear about it.
Right,
People are talking about it.
right.
So how do you take that in terms of your leadership? How
Mm-hmm.
do you process that and say, what do I admire? What do I envy? What do I do not want to be? I don't want to be like that, because I think you can learn from people who you don't want to be like,
Mm-hmm.
just as much as you can learn from people who you admire and do want to be like. That's
Right.
not how I want to be perceived. That's not how I want to come across. Most times in political or celebrity, it's more so political now. It's just the effort to win and not to lead.
Mm-hmm.
At least from my perception, it's like I want to win, and then I'll lead. Instead, I want to lead so I can win and be
Right.
someone that people can follow
Right.
as a leader. So leaders today, especially in the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
have so many influences, but it really boils down to what we talked about before in that brand. How do you want to show up? What do you want people to say about you when you're there, when you're not there?
Mm-hmm.
And especially as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
and how you impact things, how you contribute, what relationships you have, what connections that you made in order to contribute to whatever the long-term and short-term goals are for
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing.
You work with a team. You have a team. Yes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I would like for you to share with me an example where you as a leader, your authenticity made a tangible difference. Let's say with your team or your team and the organization. Can you share an example that you
Yeah,
had?
it's probably a lot. I'm very close to my team. I have two direct reports,
Okay.
and I have a great relationship with my manager. So I
Mm-hmm.
consider them my more immediate team.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, I've grown up in this particular, at this company from
Mm-hmm.
manager to senior vice president. So I've been here
Mm-hmm.
almost 12 years in December.
Okay.
So if I don't have relationships with them by now, something is wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
It would be really wrong if I didn't have relationships with
Uh-huh.
these folks. So we're so connected, and we have individual relationships, we have relationship as a team, and it's ideal from my perspective. And I think you have to have a level of comfort with people in order to be vulnerable, even though sometimes it requires that you don't have that level of comfort and you're still comfortable. But for me, one example in particular is when my father was very ill and we had some big projects going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were implementing things and doing things and making things happen. But he had been ill for a long time and he became more ill. And when he went into the hospital, I spent every day there with him. And I was still trying to stay connected to them and
Mm-hmm.
still trying to make things happen, going into the waiting room in the hospital and taking meetings. And then at one point, when the emotional part of it just started to take its toll, I said, you can't you can't do this right now. And even though they didn't even have the expectation that I would be doing that while dealing
Mm-hmm.
with that
Right.
situation,
Right.
but I shared with them what was going on, how I felt about it, and while I still wanted to show up as a leader for them, my life is coming to my heart is breaking, right? And
Right.
I can't give you fully what you need in this moment. And immediately they stepped up. It's like, what do you need? What do you need to do? You can do this. And I felt so supported and so safe in that moment. And then ultimately, when my father passed,
Mm-hmm.
I was in a state where, okay, I can't. I'm just done for a while.
Right. I got
And I had to be vulnerable in that sense because if I had a mask on, if I was trying to just be the leader and not deal with something that was totally impacting my entire world, then they would have seen through that completely, I think.
you.
But
Yeah,
I had to be vulnerable in order to get that support.
right. And I think that would have been a disservice to them.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
as you being
Yeah.
their leader, that would definitely be a disservice to them instead of being authentic about the situation because our personal life always is going to bleed into our professional life.
Oh,
That's just the way
absolutely.
it goes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And the other
thank
part of that is too, I wouldn't want to model that for them, that they would have to be strong
yes,
and could
got you.
keep working when
Mhm.
something that devastating was happening to them. So setting the precedence is really important when it comes to leadership and being authentic, because the more mechanical you show up, the more mechanical people are going to feel like they need to show up,
So,
right? It's like, I can't tell the truth. I can't be vulnerable. I can't say I'm going through something right
right.
now, and still be professional.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry, to hear about your dad, but thank you for
You,
sharing that example. That
I
was
wanted to, if you don't, or if
Mhm.
you want to go past it, I wanted to tap into that angry Black woman
Okay. Let's
example
go
you
for
gave
it.
too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And you know what? I'm surprised. Like I said, I coach a lot of Black professionals as part of
Mhm.
the program. And I was just kind of shocked and surprised how many young Black women are trying so hard not to be the angry Black woman still.
Mm.
Still, I mean, these are young professionals. They
Mhm.
like the end of the millennials and a lot of Gen Z.
Mhm.
They're saying, "Well, I don't want to show up. I don't want to be too aggressive,
Aggressive.
because or show my passion." Or they've already been told that they get too passionate about something, or it seems like you're angry about. This is the feedback that they're receiving, and they said, I just don't want to show up as an angry Black woman. I said, do you get passionate about things? And we kind of dissect how they show up when people have this perception,
Mhm.
and then trying to be more emotionally aware. That comes with emotional intelligence. How do I navigate my emotion in the moment in order to, communicate effectively still, even though I'm feeling how I'm feeling? I said, it's a certain thing that whatever you do, if they're uncomfortable with it, if someone is uncomfortable with it, you could get that, oh, she's an angry Black woman. You can't control that. What you can control is how you show up and how you show your passion, and,
Mhm.
and manage that in a sense where they know they can feel you without having the perception that you're angry. And
Mhm.
there's a way to do that for each individual and how you show up and still be authentic to yourself.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's so important. It just boggled my mind that,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to show up as an angry Black woman, or, we have to work 10 times harder, than anyone
Mhm.
else to be seen, to be heard, to be elevated.
Mhm.
And while that latter part is sometimes still true, just what if you didn't worry about that? What would your world look like?
Right.
How would you communicate with them?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's always different, and it's a different perspective, like you said, a mind shift
It's a mind
in
shift.
how things, and despite what the consequences are, as long as you're showing up as who you are.
Are, right. So
Hmm.
it's great advice, Nicole. And can you share with me maybe like an example of, and I don't want you to, overstep confidentiality, but something you may have told them they could do to counteract, because I know every situation could be different depending on
Hmm.
what's going on in that
Hmm.
person's,
Yeah.
life or what's going on in their work life. So can
Hmm.
you give me like an example, share with us an example of maybe some advice
Hmm.
uh, about
Yeah.
when that gremlin, I should say,
Hmm.
arises,
Hmm.
that angry Black woman gremlin arises?
Yeah, and I share, well, I approach it two different ways, whether I'm coaching or mentoring. With coaching, I'm asking questions and trying to
Yes,
determine what
right.
was the situation,
Situation.
and what if you could do things differently, how would you
Mhm.
do them, and how do you think that would be perceived?
Right.
As a mentor, I would say, just what I said before, why did you don't care about how they perceive it, in that sense of you being an angry Black woman, but also manage how you put yourself out there, right? If you are telling me that you're showing it up and doing like this and having some type of physical aggressive behavior, how can you share that perspective without doing this? Because perception is that you are, if you're hitting your hand, if you're leaning in, you're angry or yelling, And if that's not the case, but you're passionate about something, them feeling like you're angry about something, you can explain it if it's given to you as feedback. This is why I feel this way,
Mhm.
and go from there. But the fact that I usually talk about what's in your control versus what's out of your control, and
Right.
what you can
Okay.
influence even when it's out of your control. And when you're passionate about something, you can influence people in ways like, this is how I feel, this is how I would approach it because of these reasons, as opposed to pulling something that is angry out of you to communicate it.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, even if you're passionate about it and communicate it in the best way possible without any aggression, some people will still perceive that
Mhm.
as you being an angry Black
Aggressive.
woman just because you have an opinion
Right.
about something.
That's right. I was
They
just
will
gonna say
still,
that. Just gonna say
it's
that.
like you can't
You
control
can't,
that.
right.
You can
Some,
influence it, right? But you
yep.
definitely can't control it. I was perceived that way and given that feedback in my career too. And I was like,
Hmm.
what did I do to make you think that I was angry? I
Hmm.
was passionate about it.
Hmm.
I felt like something shouldn't have been changed that was requested to be changed, especially since it was going to change everything else.
Hmm.
And the requested change brought about the same outcome. So why am I being perceived that way? What makes you feel that?
Hmm.
If I'm being, and some people aren't going to ask the person, what made you feel like I was angry? They'll take it on and
Yeah.
sometimes put a mask back on, and
So,
I'm going to be quiet,
yep.
right? Stifle
They'll
myself.
internalize. Yep. They
Yeah. Or
internalize. That's true.
yes, yes. And
Hmm.
some who are more emotionally aware know that that's a hiccup for that person, not them.
Hmm.
And they'll still continue to show up the same way or assess or shift a little bit to make sure that what they're doing is not textbook, aggressive. But if they're just simply stating their opinion and it's a strong opinion, they're not the angry Black woman
No. Yeah.
that people may perceive they
You're
are.
right. And especially, I think professionals that are kind of starting out their career.
Hmm.
And that you're right, they don't want to make waves. You don't want
Right.
to label. I think those are labels. It doesn't, having a passion about something or speaking up and giving your opinion. And because I give you my opinion that you're going to label me as the angry Black woman.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so what happens is you need to cower. You need to, make yourself
Mhm.
small and
Yeah.
cower. And for some people, that here again will put on the mask and do that and can lead to mental health issues. Okay,
Yes.
because they're not feeling that they can be themselves. Some maybe are like, well, what you see is what you get. This is who I am. I'm not, and explaining the passion, I'm not angry, I'm passionate. Okay.
Yes.
You
Yes.
just think I'm angry. And
Hmm.
then having guidance though to say, I may be at a fork and maybe I need to make some decisions that
Hmm.
are going to make me happy when it comes to my career. In other words,
Yeah.
I'm at a crossroad
Hmm.
path of my career.
Hmm.
And looking at the situation holistically is
Hmm.
I can see that if I take this path, I'm still going to run into these barriers. I'm going to run into these stereotypes. I'm going to run into these barriers. Or is it time for me to make a change?
Hmm.
Okay. And is it
Absolutely.
time for me to make a shift that's going to be
Hmm.
best for me?
Yes.
Because I think, as a culture, have learned to internalize and kind of suck it up and just take
Yep.
it and say, okay,
We
I'm
do.
not, I'm going to go along to get along kind of
Hmm.
thing, instead of
Hmm.
being true to our own moral compass.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's, understanding what that moral compass is and standing
Hmm.
behind your moral compass. If they think more in terms of that, then they can make more informed decisions about what's going to be right for them.
Yeah, it's
It's
so
like,
interesting that you say that because sometimes they don't know what that moral compass is. They just
not
so
yet. Yeah.
something not yet. It exists, it maybe with other people, but not because that's the foundation, that's the core,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have that established,
Mm-hmm.
then you know it's time for me to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for me to make a shift.
Mm-hmm.
And when I coach, I never say leave or go. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about the pros and cons. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
what it's doing to you right now in terms of your mental health.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that I'm coaching you, but I recognize that you need
Mm-hmm.
counseling
Mm-hmm.
because of the impact of this and other things
Mm-hmm.
on your psyche, your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
your who you are.
Your
And
physical
that
health. Yeah.
connects, yeah, and that connects back
Physical
to
health.
being
Yeah.
authentic to yourself, right? It's
Yeah.
just like I'm not going to convince myself and press all this
Mhm.
down that this is just a
Right.
part of it. Now I have to shrink and
Right.
be who they think I should be instead of who I really am. It does go back to the mental health. It does go back to the self-awareness and having that moral compass and it being the core of who you are in order to make those type of decisions
Mhm. Right.
because we will just keep going and going and okay, yeah, I expect it and then become so complacent about our career and how we
Yes.
show up, then it's not a benefit to
Yeah.
us nor the people that we're trying to
Right.
support or serve.
Right. Yeah. A few weeks ago, I ran into a woman. We had done some projects together, and she was working for an organization, and she left. And
Mhm.
she looked so good. I was
Yeah.
like, I could just, she left, she landed in a position that she truly loves, back to her roots.
Hmm.
And you could just see it all over her
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
Whereas when we did work together before, I could always feel, I always felt that she was a little drawn. She was
Mm.
very good at her job, very
Yeah.
personable. Um, but there was just something that about it, could play the organizational game well, but it was just something about her, uh,
Mhm.
you know, her appearance that made her look drawn. And I could just see
Yeah.
this total change when
Hmm.
I saw her a few weeks back. And so
Hmm.
she finally, that's what it was. That's
Hmm.
what, she was at that crossroads and she had and made that decision and couldn't be happier for it. But you can see it on a person physically, what a lot of
You
times what it
can.
is,
It's
what's
such a
happening.
heavy weight.
It's a
Uh,
heavy weight.
it's a
It
heavy
really
weight
is.
to carry. It really
Hmm.
is. And to decide that you're going to continue to carry it, that
Hmm.
gets even heavier.
Yeah.
I've seen those shifts too, where people are like, okay, now they're in the job, they're brighter, they have more energy, they have more
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
and when they're not, it's like less conversation, even emotional in the sense like I don't even know. I talked to someone the other day. I don't even know what I want, what I need. I don't know. And I was like, well, how do you find that out? It's
Right.
like, I don't know. That was the question.
Right.
And sometimes I ask, what if I don't know wasn't an option for you to answer? What
Yeah.
if it wasn't an option? So what could it be
B. Yeah.
ideally, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that is a very heavy weight to
Yeah.
carry. And then once it's lifted, you feel just totally free.
Free, totally free. And
Yes.
she's looked totally free. And I told her, I
Mhm.
said, God, you look great. I mean, it
Mhm.
was just, she looked wonderful. And I only knew her, from when we worked
Mhm.
together on other projects, in the
Yeah.
past. But to see this total change in,
Mhm.
just her demeanor, the way she looked, she could tell us how much
Mhm.
happier she was. And I never would have
Mhm.
known that if she hadn't left and changed.
Wow.
But I'm
Yeah.
very, very happy for her. So how do you stay authentic while still learning from or applying leadership frameworks? How do you stay authentic while you're still
Yeah.
learning?
Yeah. And I think too that really depends on where you are in your
In
leadership
the
journey, like what
right.
the levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're new into it, it's just like, okay, have I identified my own leadership identity, persona
Mm-hmm.
style?
Right.
Do I know what that is? And if I don't, again, what do I admire about other things and other
Mhm.
people? Is that a part of what I do? And if it's not, how do I get there?
Mhm.
I often do an exercise with people. Okay, what do you want to do? And I use the example of being more confident if they don't feel confident. Well, what does confidence look like physically in terms of behaviors? And they say, oh, a strong voice, posture, using hand gestures, looking at people while they're talking. Okay, those are all behaviors you could actually practice,
Yes.
right? And those are practice. And then if you ask someone in your audience, did they perceive you as confident? They say yes, because you're practicing those behaviors. So it's really being very aware of who you are as a leader and then deciding what you want to be. And then wherever there's gaps, how can you build those skills and then that become part of you, which is authentic because you have intention around, having that particular skill or characteristic.
Mhm.
um, when it comes to being more senior, which I think in leaders, their style has been established,
Right. Okay.
but they're so important that they're open to growth, right?
Yes.
Because I've seen senior leaders get into a certain style and they're stuck there,
Mhm.
and then they're wondering why other things aren't changing when they used to, but this world is different. The
Mhm.
employees are different. Gen Z brings difference for sure. Millennials brought difference. But
Mhm.
if they don't shift in that style, or at least open to growing in a different direction or adding to their leadership style, then things aren't going to work out the way they usually do
Mhm.
for them because
Right.
they're not changing, but everything else around them
It's
is.
changing.
So that's so important to be open to continue to grow as a leader. We don't just, oh, I'm a leader, I'm
Yeah.
good, no more growth,
Right.
no more expansion.
Don't work
I'm
like that.
here and this, I'm going to keep doing this
Right.
until I retire.
Mhm.
The most successful leaders actually move in a direction of growth for their own leadership
Mhm.
and continue to assess, get executive coaching, talk to their employees about what they need from them and their expectations of them and being willing to step out that box
Mhm.
that they may be in to support the people around them and to
Right.
continue to be successful as a leader and bring success to their
Mhm.
organization.
Yeah. One of my
Mhm.
things when I talk to people when they're sometimes about coaching, they'll say, "Well, I have a coach," and I'll say, "Well, that's great. I'm glad that you have a coach. Every person, I think, everyone can benefit from a coach." But I said, "But are you improving? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Are you
Mhm.
improving? Because you can have a
Mhm.
coach." But you have a coach maybe for different reasons. So, as a
Mhm.
leader, are you improving? Because you can be an expert at what you do,
Yeah.
but there's always room for improvement. And that's what a
Mhm.
coach can help
Absolutely.
you with. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
not necessarily, you can, something that you're growing in your game, you're at the top of your game. But even
Mhm.
at the top of your game, you can still continue to improve
Yeah.
over,
Yeah.
over time of something, some phase or something. And so that
Yeah.
people kind of, it's like a little bit of an aha, but their brows kind of frown like, I never thought about it that way because I
Mhm.
thought it was all about developing my style,
Mhm.
or solving a problem or, something like that. I said, but yeah, I get it. You have a coach, you are
Yeah.
expert at what you do, you're at your top of your
Mhm.
game, but have you considered what's next? Well, I think the answer to this is yes, but I'd like to get a little deeper of why you think so.
Okay.
Leaders from unrepresented groups face additional barriers and showing authenticity in the workplace. Well, we kind of know the answer to that.
Yes.
The
Yes.
answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. But
Absolutely yes.
what are your thoughts maybe about getting around those barriers? Or
Yeah.
showing, when you face these additional barriers, how can you keep that keep that authenticity in
Hmm.
your, yeah.
Hmm. I think if they go in authentic, if that's been the
Mhm.
practice for them going into these leadership roles, and that doesn't mean it won't be shaken. That doesn't mean that,
Mhm.
they won't kind of revert back to this cultural thing that they feel like they need to comply with. But if they go in with it, at least they'll have that as foundation of the barriers. Um, I think sometimes even if you're a leader and you're in an unrepresented group or a person of color, uh, your perception, is the people's perception of you kind of fall into the stereotypes
Mhm.
sometimes,
Mhm.
especially in how you come off as a leader. But the authenticity is important. Also, getting to know people and making connections in the relationships.
Mhm.
Because if I meet someone for the first time and have a certain perception, most likely my perception is going to expand or change completely
Mhm.
once I get to know them.
Mhm.
So taking that effort to get to know individuals
Right.
that they're going to connect with on a regular basis and not just show up for the meeting and talk business,
Mhm.
and making those, and that'll benefit you overall. It's not just, oh, I'm a person of color, I need to create relationship. That's part of leadership,
Right.
right? That's part of how you become successful in an organization.
Right.
So that's very key. And then showing that the acceptance and inclusion of other people that you meet so it can be reciprocated. It's like whatever lifestyle, whatever things they like to do, things they don't like to do in that relationship as you get to know them and accepting that and kind of um, demonstrating that for them, it'll help it happen in the same way for you. Not guaranteed, but definitely showing and actually role modeling what it could be to be in a relationship and connection with the people that you work with.
Okay.
So, and one thing I do want to say about this is
Sure.
it shouldn't be this whole concerted effort that's taking up most of your time, your mind space, and all these things to get people to accept you.
Uh-huh.
That's not my message, because either you accept me or you don't. You can have a relationship with me or you don't. I'm still going to do the very best I can in my role, and most times, if you have issues with me, that's your business and that's your problem. It's not mine. We have to find a way to work together in order to make sure things happen the way they're supposed to. So, by no means would I say, start to conform, start to bend, start to do things that they want you to do. Work out your own plan, navigate your own space, be very self aware, be willing to create relationships and give people the benefit of the doubt. And if they prove you wrong, work accordingly, but not changing yourself, but just growing in the space of authenticity for yourself as an unrepresented group or person of color.
Okay. Well, on that note, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me and discussing authentic leadership. Is there anything else you want to add before we stop?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity,
Oh.
Marilyn. It's been wonderful having the conversation with you and being able to just share and to hear your opinions and thoughts around this too. So I appreciate the opportunity to do so, and I love this. I love my job. I love what I do. I should say I
Mhm.
love what I do. It's not just a
Right.
job.
Right.
It's the connection with people. It's influencing in a way that helps them open doors and windows in their minds to allow them to do more than what they think they can.
Right.
And that's what I love to do. And I consider that's my way of supporting and serving
Yeah.
in my life overall. So
Mhm.
this is an opportunity to just expand on that. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what learning and development is all about. And
Yes.
I thank you so much for joining me. We will do some more of these. This has been great. And so we'll
Yes,
do some
yes.
more of them.